educational critical review and reaction is the late, great Jordan Maxwell.
When I was growing up, I wanted to know. I was into everything. I was researching and studying everything I could get my hands on, and I wanted to know. I wanted knowledge. And so I really appreciated, more than anyone will know, I really appreciated speakers, teachers, authors, writers, people who were the leading authorities in that day that I could go to and listen, go to seminars and sit and listen to them and learn from them and write down their sources of their information and go back and get the books and read. So I was traveling all over California and all the museums and all the federal and state depositories, all kinds of research libraries. I lived out at UCLA and USC stacks. They would call them the stacks at USC, underground libraries, for years and years and years, cross-referencing everything, reading everything I could on the occult, on the strange things that are going on in the world. And like I said, I was meeting all kinds of off-the-wall characters who were blowing my mind with stories about all sorts of interesting things. And these people were all well-grounded, highly intelligent, military people, scientists, physicists, astronauts.
Well, it's like they say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
That's it. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. That's what we're doing here. I just want to wake people up, and I'm so tired of hearing radio that does nothing but just pour out slop into the public trough, as we're just shrill, feeding the pigs. Just feed the pigs. You pour some slop into the public trough, and it's called radio, and it's all about dope and loud music and craziness and stupidity and ignorance, and then politics and religion and commerce. I have always wanted to hear a radio show that damn well tells you something that's really important, intellectually and spiritually gratifying. And nothing out there on radio today is either spiritually gratifying or makes any sense. It's all a bunch of bullshit. I know it, and everybody else knows it. I want to produce a program that's based on really interesting people.
Yeah, it's just sharing the wisdom. Really, that's the key for future generations to kind of
look at those young people today have no basis for it. They have nothing to build on. They haven't been given anything. And also, this is what Dick Gregory said. He said, Americans love talking about how we have the right to elect our leaders. We can go to the polls and elect our leaders, but you can't select your leader.
Yeah, we get two choices.
You get two choices. Yeah, Abbott or Costello.
Yeah.
Mutt and Jeff. Yeah. Laurel and Hardy. You either have one of the two. Which one of these thugs do you want? Because they both work for me.
Don't get me going on politics.
Oh, man, politics is incredible.
At least American politics.
Yeah.
It's
a hell of a story, American politics.
Yeah. But, I think, listen, there is hope.
Well, like I said, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train coming.
Yeah, and as you know, you've lived all over and experienced all kinds of culture. America still is the finest country on the planet.
America was the greatest thing that ever happened on the face of the earth. I love my country. I love the idea of being free. But I'm telling you, unless and until the young people, don't look to the older people to do anything. They're too stupid and too old and too dim-witted. And the people with money, they're not about to do anything. People with money are not about to give you a nickel to help you do anything to save the human race. I will guarantee you that. The guys with the big money in Hollywood, they're not about to give you a nickel.
No,
so the only hope that there's any hope at all is young people who have the vitality and the energy. I don't have the vitality and I don't have the energy. I've got the experience, the knowledge, and the wisdom of some 53 years of being in the world of the occult. And so that's why I just want to share with young people who want to know. Because, God, this world is so fascinating when you really begin to...
It really is a beautiful place. And it's a journey, and we're only here for a short time. And the key is making every day count.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I love talking about my experiences and the things I'm interested in. Because I want the young people in the audience to get enthralled with the stories that I'm telling them. I've been doing what I do for 53 years. I started back in 1959. with talking at little mom and pop grocery stores and bookstores, and I was just fascinated with the world of the occult, with all the things that are not seen. I don't know why, I just gravitated toward the dark side on everything. No matter what was happening in the world, I always knew that there was more to the story yet. There's something else going on that you don't see. One of the themes of the Masonic Order of Knights Templars became very famous: as above, so below. So I always applied that to everything happening on the earth. Whatever's happening on the earth, there's got to be a reason. And I don't buy for 1 minute that things just happen. No, things don't just happen. Things are caused by people who make them happen. I wanted to know, and that's the big thing. The emphasis is on the word want. I wanted to know. So I decided to dedicate my life to studying the occult. The word occult simply is a Latin word which means hidden. It doesn't mean it's evil or bad or of the devil. It just means hidden. And so I realized, as I said, even growing up as a small kid, I already realized that nothing is what it seems. There's always a reason for everything. And almost never do people see the reason for things. Things happen, and so we react to when things happen. I've lived a whole life of strange, off-the-wall experiences. And every time I think it's over, no, it's coming back bigger.
Just beginning.
Just beginning. I've done over 600 radio interviews. I've worked with CBS on the Ancient Mystery series. I've spoke all around the world, all over the earth, traveled extensively, speaking about the world of the occult. And I'm fascinated with how much people don't know. I've had 36 peak experiences in my life. I'll give you an example of the kind of thing that happens to me. And back in 1992-93, I was asked to speak at a conference in Pasadena at a large hotel. There would be about, at least 500 people in the audience. And so about a week before, I went out there with the two guys who were putting the conference on. Gary Schultz and Norio Hayakawa from Japan were putting this UFO, alien conference on, and I was going to be the keynote speaker. But we went out to the hotel about a week before to kind of spy out the hotel and see what we were going to do. Norio asked me, he said, when you come up on the platform, what are you going to need? Are you going to be doing a slide presentation or a blackboard or what? And I told him, no, I don't need anything. All I want is a table and a chair, because I want to be able to lay all the documents out that I'm talking about, and I just want to be like a teacher in front of a class. I don't need anything special. So he said to me, all right, then I'll tell you what we'll do then. We'll have somebody sitting behind you on a bar stool with a video camera over your shoulder, so that when you're talking about a document, hold it up, knowing that he's going to zoom in on it, and we'll have closed circuit TV so people can see what you're reading. And so that next Saturday, it came off great. I did a 2-hour presentation on UFOs and alien stuff and all kinds of occult subjects, and it went off fine. That night when we were leaving the event, the guy who was filming me, sitting behind me on the stage, he asked me, he said, Jordan, could you come over tonight for dinner? My wife and I would like to have you come over. And he lived right there in the city in Pasadena. I said, sure. So we go over there. He's got a really nice condo. The wife is in the kitchen fixing dinner, and he and I are sitting in the front room talking about all kinds of strange stuff. After a while, she comes out of the kitchen and says to him in front of me, she said, have you told him yet? And he said, no, I wasn't going to tell him till after dinner. And I thought to myself, oh, God, not again. I don't like it, surprises. So I said to him, I said, what do you mean you were going to tell me? Tell me what? And he said, we had an ulterior motive for inviting you here. He said, I've told this story to so many people over the last many years, and my wife has heard it so many times. Now I'm going to tell you the story. He said, I just turned 50 years old. And when I was 17 years old, I was back on the East Coast. And one morning, I was out of school for the summer, and I was thumbing my way north to stay with my cousin. And he said, an old man picked me up in a pickup truck. And he said the truck was filthy, dirty, falling apart, and the old man looked to be at least 90 years old. And he said, but at least it's a ride. So he says, when I got in, this old man began to tell me everything about me and my family. He was absolutely correct. He knew everything about my dad's job, my mother, her friends, my sister. The whole time we're driving, he was telling me all about my life.
Deja vu.
And how I'm doing in school, what my sister's boyfriend's doing, and how my dad's doing in business. And he said everything he was telling me was exactly right. And he said, I was amazed as a kid, who is this old man in this dirty, beat-up truck that's telling me this stuff? And he says, and when we stopped, when he let me out, he said, everything I've told you up to now was to entertain you and get your attention. Now I'm going to tell you something important. After you're 50 years old, you're going to be on the other side of this country. And one morning, you're going to be on a stage with a man sitting at a table with a lot of papers. And you're going to have a camera. That technology does not exist, but it will then. And you're going to have a camera sitting behind him over his shoulder so that when he picks up the paper to talk about, you will be able to hit it with the camera so that people in the audience will be able to see what he's talking about. Now, when that happens, you tell the guy sitting there that you're filming, you tell him I said that I put him at that table. He's sitting at that table doing what I want him to do. That was not his idea to sit at that table. It's my idea. I put him there. And he says, so this morning I'm sitting there filming you, and it finally dawned on me because I was so interested in getting everything ready, I wasn't thinking. And he said, I looked in the audience, I looked at my wife, and she was staring at me. Today, the prophecy was fulfilled. It was like 17 years ago. And the old man just told me to tell you that he put you there. That's not your idea. He wanted you there. That frightened me so that I got up and left. And I remember walking out at night, and I walked out to the street, and I was shaking. I was frightened. And he came out and walked with me. And I said, I don't understand what's happening. And he said, all I'm telling you is what the man said. So somebody knew what you were going to do years ago when they told me. And he said it wouldn't be until after I turned 50. That's just one of many experiences. Because I had so many experiences before that, it was just one more devastating blow that tells me that it doesn't seem to me that anybody is in control of anything. The thing about that particular story that really strikes me is the fact that he knew a particular camera did not exist then. How did he know that that camera was a technology that didn't exist? That implies that all this technology we're being given. Somebody is giving the human race technology, high, incredibly intelligent technological advances. Somebody is giving it to us. I've sat with, I don't know how much I can say on radio, and this has always been my problem, is when I'm on radio, I have to watch what I say because there are other people's lives are involved, and I don't want to cause other people problems in life, but by telling stories out of school. But I've been told some really incredible stuff from very important people in this world. I mean, profoundly important people in this world that you would not think that I had an opportunity to even be in their company, and what they told me.
We've collectively have sat down with some of those folks.
That's right.
Remember the gentleman who introduced us, and
that's right,
his involvement
with the
government for years and years
at
and
the
years.
very, very pinnacle of government.
Mm-hmm.
Pinnacle of government.
Right.
I remember him telling me, Netanyahu works for me. I remember the night he said that. Netanyahu, Kissinger, no, they work for me.
Well, I remember he invited me over to his house that day after September 11th in the World Trade Centers. I went over to his office, and sitting in his office amongst all the photographs of him and every world diplomat out there on the planet, including several presidents.
Oh, yeah, and Queen Mum and Prince Charles and all these royalty of Europe. He had pictures of everybody.
Yeah, and I remember having the discussions. You and I had some very interesting Shabbat dinners at his house.
That's right. We sure did.
He shared a lot of his wisdom and explained
And
how.
if anybody had it, he did. I mean, he was one of the top people in this government.
And sharp as a tack.
Oh, yeah.
At 92 years old, he was sharper than half the 20-year-olds at the table.
Yeah. Brilliant man.
Yeah, great guy.
Well, I don't know if I ever told you this, but in 1999, December 31st, New Year's night, the next morning, New Year's morning of the year 2000, I got a phone call from him. And I said, what a pleasure to hear from you. And he said, well, I'm just calling to wish you a happy new year. And I said, well, thank you for thinking of me. And he said, of course I think of you. You're my friend. And so I could hear he was in a restaurant. So I said, so where are you? And he said, well, I'm having breakfast with my wife. He said, she wanted to come to Palm Springs for the weekend, for the holiday weekend. So I brought her over here, and we're having breakfast. I said, well, that's nice. And so he said, I'm here having breakfast with Secretary Powell and Dick Cheney, and they want to say hello. And yeah, he's there with Powell and Cheney, and he said, I've been talking to them about you and about my feelings about you. I was just amazed. And so we talked, and I talked to his wife for a few minutes, and then that was it. And so then when she handed the phone back to him, he said, well, you will be coming to dinner next week. And I said, yes, I will, Doc. Yes, I will. And he said, well, I've been talking to Powell and Cheney about you. And so I've told them about my feelings about you. And I said, well, I hope it's good. And he says, always, I love you, and we'll talk later. So I said, well, thank you. So that was it. But, Powell and Cheney sitting there discussing me.
I'll never forget the call when his aide came in and said, Dr. Kissinger's on the phone, would you like to take his call? And he and Henry Kissinger had a 5-minute conversation about how the world was about to change after that day.
That's exactly right. And he told me, he said, there are 7 men who run California. One of those sessions when we were up in his office, in his home, and our other mutual friend, the other doctor, was there, and so he said to me, he said, there are 7 men who run the state of California. One of them is in charge of all entertainment. One is over agriculture. One is over the mineral resources of California. Another one's over the corporations and international corporations. But basically, the power of California is in the hands of 7 men, and they work directly for me. I hired them. I don't know what that tells you, but what translated, it seems like means, this guy was calling the shots for California. Not only was he doing it, but he's calling it in Washington, D.C. Because he told me, one of his actual words were, Netanyahu works for me.
That's amazing.
He and I, as you well know, because you were there, he and I became very, very close friends. And there was a third one in our triumvirate, who was a doctor who was also with us in that time. And I'm telling you, I sat and talked with him about world politics, about world religion. And,
very fascinating.
Oh,
he was,
absolutely.
A very good mentor, I think, for all of us. He was
absolutely a wonderful mentor for all of us.
Well, and I think that sort of goes back to the show, is he, at the age of 90, 91, 92, was sharing a lot of his worldly wisdom to potentially make this a better place. And,
that's what he wanted to do.
Sharing the wisdom is really, I think, the cornerstone to this show, where you're giving a palette to go out and share experiences, life experiences. And I think seeing that knowledge is power.
That's it.
And
knowledge is power. Absolutely.
And the symbolism within everyday society. I'll notice I've traveled the world extensively, from Brazil to Europe to Asia to you name it. Getting into the symbols, which you've really opened my eyes to. They're symbols, and these symbols have been around for an awfully long time. And
they're in your face.
They're right there in your face.
Everywhere you go.
Well, look, walk into a courtroom or look at the state seal, and they're right there on the wall.
That's right.
The old saying, read between the lines.
That's right.
And
read the fine print.
Yeah.
Read the fine print. But before you sign the contract, read the fine print. What are you talking about? And sign on the dotted line.
Yep.
Well, sign on the dotted line and read the fine print go together. Because when you're signing a check, if you have a checkbook, look in your checkbook. And where you signed your name, it looks like small dots. So therefore, you're signing on the dotted line, okay? But get a magnifying glass. It's not dots. It's small, tiny print. That's why the attorneys tell you, read the fine print.
Right.
The fine print is on your check where you're signing your check. And so read the fine print.
Yep.
And so when you get a magnifying glass and look at that line you're signing on, it's not a dotted line. They're not dots, they're letters, and it's spelling out something.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting the way the banking, does what they do to us.
Well, the banking system. Well, that's the irony of the banking world. You look at the control that they have
over everything,
printing everything. And it's funny that if you look at 4 countries that are considered the biggest threat, if you look at North Korea, if you look at Iran, if you look at Cuba, and even Venezuela, and those aren't the 4 countries that have nothing to do with, quote unquote, the Rothschild banking. They have their own sort of way of monetization. There's not control over the central bank system.
Yeah, and that's why they're the enemy. But this whole idea of banking, and I've always loved the as I said, the dark side, especially in relation to UFOs and ancient mysteries and who built the pyramids and where do these ancient monoliths and huge stones. I've been to Egypt 3 times. I spoke in Cairo 3 different times, and we went to the pyramids. And I have to say that we were right across the street from the pyramids. We stayed, and so every night we would just sit out on the patio upstairs. We were 6 stories up, and on the patio we look right across the street at the Sphinx is right there, and then right behind it on the Giza Plateau, the plateau above it was the pyramids. And so every night there was a light and music show. We'd sit out there on 7 stories up on the roof watching the show every night. But the pyramids are strange for me. I was not as impressed with the pyramids as I thought I would be, although and the reason why, I think, is because your mind does not comprehend, even when you're looking at them across the street, your mind does not comprehend how big these things really are until you get there. You drive up, it's about 2 or 3 blocks, and you have to drive up there to the Giza Plateau. Well, they're right there in front of you, but wait till you get there. Then you begin to see how large they really are. And that's very impressive. But the thing that blows my mind is when you go inside the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid is not the middle one. The middle one is the one that everyone always sees. No, that's not the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's the one before it is the Great Pyramid of Giza. The one in the middle is very impressive, but that's not, in point of fact, the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And when you go inside the Great Pyramid, it's a mind trip. I'm just amazed at the size of the stones inside that gallery when you're climbing up the gallery, walking up this long. Have you ever been in the Great?
I've not been there yet. No.
Oh, it's incredible! Absolutely.
Road trip.
Yeah.
It's a mind trip inside
how old
the
do you
Great
think
Pyramid.
they really are? Because there's a lot of controversy over the true
absolutely,
age of
lots of controversy. Well, the Egyptians told Herodotus that they had no idea who built the pyramids. So when Herodotus, the Greek historian, that was back, I don't know, before Alexander the Great, or right around that time, when the Greeks went into Egypt, the people that were not Egyptians, they were Arabic, but they told Herodotus, we don't know who built them. I have no idea.
Well, even the Great Pyramid, they say they're even finding controversy of what it really was. And
there's never. I'll tell you one thing we know for sure that it wasn't, and the one thing we know for sure that it wasn't is what all of our schools teach that it was, and that is the Great Pyramid. All 3 pyramids were tombs for the pharaohs.
Not true.
That is as ludicrous on the face of it. Just on the face of it, that's stupidity. Anybody who would make a statement like that in public should be ashamed of themselves.
Now they're coming out saying that the Great Pyramid was a potential power generator of some sort.
Oh, well, anything. But tell me that it was a tomb. Anyone more than 500 brain cells all going the same way will tell you that the pharaohs were buried about 25 miles south of there in a place called the Valley of the Kings.
Yep.
That's where the pharaohs are buried. There's no pharaohs or anybody buried in any pyramids, and they were not tombs to start with. So when you understand that the three, and you just mentioned it, those three pyramids at a particular time of the year, the Orion's belt is directly overhead. And Orion's belt, there's three very bright stars, but one of them is a little off-center. The last one's a little off-center. The other two are in straight line, but the third one is a little one, and it's off-centered a little bit. That's exactly what the pyramids are. The two great pyramids, and then there's a third pyramid, which is a little off-center. Well, it coincides with the Orion's belt. Exactly. Perfect. So what I'm saying is that the pyramids were anything but burial tombs. No, there was nobody buried in those tombs.
Well, look, they all the same ones. The Mayans. You also look at the
same thing.
The Indians, the Indian temples, and the one I found fascinating we were discussing earlier is off the coast of Cuba, 2 miles under the surface of the ocean.
Yeah,
they've been able to find a duplicate of the same Giza plateau with the pyramids to scale,
yeah,
and they also line up with Orion.
Well, and what about the pyramid that's found on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, right off the coast of Florida? There's a big pyramid sitting out on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, people don't know about it. It's because it doesn't really have anything to do with football or sports or basketball. So what the hell is how the hell important could it be? It's just a pyramid sitting out there on the damn ocean floor.
Well, how do you find out about it?
Yeah, well, the way it was found is that one of the doctors that worked at from the story I heard is that he was worked at the Oceanographic Institute in Miami, I think it is. And he was flying his own plane with a friend one day out over the Bahama Banks, which is 10 miles north of the island of Bimini and the Bermuda Triangle. 10 miles north of Bimini is an area called the Bahama Banks. And he was flying out over that area, and the sun, he said, was at an exact angle that he could see into the ocean, because usually it's just reflecting off the ocean. You can't see anything. But if you hit it at the right moment, the sun is at a particular angle, you can see into the ocean. And he said, and as they were flying over, they saw a pyramid that looked like a pyramid, the size of Cheops pyramid in Egypt. So they marked it where they were and came back, and they went back out there with I don't know, with the Oceanographic Institute and probably the Coast Guard. I don't know who else went out there with them, but they went back out there and they swam down and they found this pyramid, and it has an all-seeing eye at the top, and they discovered that the eye, or the opening at the top of the triangle, the top of the pyramid, was sucking in water. And it says it was sucking it in and it was blowing it out the bottom. So there's some kind of a generator actually operating right now in this pyramid that's on the ocean floor of the Atlantic, 10 miles north of Bimini, in an area called the Bahama Banks. And he said that the doctor, I think his name was Ballantyne with a B, Dr. Ballantyne, with the Oceanographic Institute. Anyway, he said, and this was incidentally on Discovery or History Channel. There was a show on this. Shocked me, but I didn't. I was amazed to see it. But there was a whole program.
They do such great jobs on some of those. Yeah,
because normally they don't put on highly intelligent shows, but this one was very interesting. But he said that when he was swimming with other people, they were all swimming around this pyramid. He says at least as high as the Great Pyramid of Giza, the big one. And he said, but he swam into the eye at the top. He swam into it. And he said, and there were two hands, that were a little larger than normal human hands, that were suspended in space. As he swam in, these two hands were suspended. And they were made out of, he felt they were made out of pewter or some kind of metal. Hands, and they were holding a crystal, and he said, I popped the crystal out of the hands, and he said the hands were just suspended in space.
You've seen that actually in a lot of the architecture of the time. You'll see that with the double
The two
hands.
the double hands, holding
connected
something
together, holding
right.
something. Well, that's kind of getting back to the pyramid here. You'll
Oh
see
yeah, I know. I mean, people look at a dollar bill and have no idea in the world what they're looking at.
Maybe this is a good place to break. Well, people, there's a lot to learn and we need to wake up. Thank you for the support.